Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Sesh Podcast, your gateway to the cutting edge of the cannabis universe. Today, we're delving into the rainbow world of borosilicate art with none other than Karma Glass.
Known for his signature rainbows, which is a testament to his passion for psychedelic art and positive vibes, Karma Glass knows how to throw it down, not just in the glass studio, but also on top of a beat. Through his artistry in crafting glass pipes, he has not only created stunning pieces, but also fostered a community that calls themselves the Karma Tribe.
So whether you're sparking up or settling in with your favorite piece, join us for a captivating journey where art, community, and cannabis converge. This is the Sesh Podcast, where each conversation unveils a new dimension. Now let's kick it off with the one and only Karma Glass.
How's it going, Karma? Welcome, bro.
It's good to be in DC, man. Appreciate y'all having me.
Happy to have you here, man.
Super stoked. Now, I know you have a crazy story on how you got started in glass. It wasn't as conventional as some of these other guys, so give it to us. I know you were, a vet or something, or how did that go?
Well, it all started back in Beaufort, Georgia. And yeah, definitely, I was a vet technician. And it's definitely the assistant to the vet, but it's somebody who assists in the procedures, surgery, and the facilitating of the everyday actions of the veterinarian. So it's definitely was my passion for a long while. But yeah, that's the genesis, man. I started as a veterinary technician who got a drug test. And, one day I hobbled onto the office thinking that everybody knew me and knew my heart and that it was going to be a quick little breeze and a little step to try to avoid that test. But turns out my very Christian, very conservative owner of the practice and doctor, he saw very differently about marijuana and where it stands and, what it means in the culture. And so I lost my job, but more importantly, he wanted me to go to an inpatient rehab, which was like wild to me because, I'm somebody that the main thing that I do, that the only thing I should say that I can think that I do that breaks laws is, like all my other fellow smokers, is I smoke herb, and so that criminalized me, with him, and that made him feel like I was other.
Yeah. Let's back it up a little bit. What was your first time actually smoking herb? What was your first experience with
First time
weed and
smoking herb? Legendary, man. That was, I was probably a freshman in high school then. I was probably about 14 years old. And that was something that changed my life because it definitely slowed my mind down and made me think a little bit differently about the way that life was going on. When was the first time y'all smoked herb?
Probably high school. Early high school.
About the same?
Yeah, same.
About the same. We have the same story in that way of being introduced to herb.
And I feel like the first time I was like obviously so nervous as everyone else, and it had this big stigma. Even, when you're first trying, you're like, I'm not sure what this is going to be. Your first time smoking, you don't even get high. You're like, why did I even really try this? But yeah, I don't know. I was always kind of going up more on the straight and narrow growing up, and then this was like a sidestep for me, drinking and smoking in high school, and now look where we are. So yeah, things have really escalated kind of quickly over time, I'd say.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I do believe things fall in place in divine timing in the way that they're supposed to. And so it's all unfolding how it's meant to be in that way, where we find ourselves committed to this thing that put a little spin on our lives in a positive direction in a time where things were super anxious and super tumultuous. You think about all the little interpersonal relationships in high school and how those affect you as a young angsty teen. And, I was one that was prescribed medication for having ADHD. So that always made me feel terrible because it made me fall in line, but it didn't make me feel good about myself. It made me feel kind of like down, made me feel like I was just like a robot. I'd do what I was told, but I wouldn't do it in a way that felt good to me. I just knew I was following the rules. Mm-hmm. And when I first started smoking herb, I slowed my mind down and it made me realize like, oh, there's another path that, it involves a little bit of a different, a different path in that way where, you become other because people are going to criticize you. People are going to condemn you. But it made me feel like myself. It made me slow down and made me want to do the things that I knew were the right thing to do in that.
So I know that Karma stands for more than just smoking herb. When did you first, experiment with psychedelics a little bit? When did you really kind of jump out of the box? Was it early on when you were smoking weed too, or how did?
I would say early on. I wouldn't say right when I was smoking psychedelics. I first smoking marijuana rather. I first took psychedelics rather when I was 17. And when I was 17, I was going through a real pivotal time in my life. There was a lot going on. And where a lot of 17-year-olds are nestled down at mom and dad's house, I found myself emancipated from the state. And I was in a place where I was recognized as an adult by the state due to my actions with smoking weed and being rowdy as a youth. It found me in state's custody. So at 17, I was very fortified. I had my own apartment. I had my own job. I was going to school to get my GED. And so it was one of those things where when psychedelics came by, all that bit of suffering that I was going through, psychedelics awakened me to the few things that matter, which in my estimation are like being yourself, trying your best, loving everything unconditionally, not just the things that you want to love, And so that at 17, that hipped me real quick. Like, wait a minute, like you put yourself in all these predicaments, and put yourself in state's custody, and who's to blame for that? Ultimately, yourself. And so that put a lot of accountability in my own cup, and that really made me realize, like, wow, okay, you can do more, but you're gonna have to be yourself, and you're gonna have to do it in a way that's meaningful, that takes a lot of accountability for the path that you want to walk. And so, psychedelics were a huge part where I diverged from just being a kind of rambling youth to somebody who was like thinking, and those psychedelics brought me to hip hop, which has changed my life. And so, through psychedelics, walking around downtown Atlanta, I found a record shop called Tower Records, and that was in downtown Atlanta. And there was an album that caught my eye with a guy holding his hands up like this, and it said "Spiritually Minded," and the artist was KRS-One. And I grabbed that album. I didn't have much money, but I grabbed that album and I played it. And it was super gospel-centric, but it was also super awoken to a lot of ideas that were in line with psychedelic use, which were, as I aforesaid, like doing what's right when nobody's looking, and trying your best, and coming from in here in a way that's meaningful, and not just that wants to be like others or compete with others. And so, yeah, I would say that psychedelic use has had a huge part in my life and my journey, and that brought me through to hip hop, which has been meaningful.
So a little bit more on the hip hop thing. Where did you start with hip hop? And I know if you go to your Instagram page, almost every other post on there is you rapping something.
Another freestyle.
Yeah. Where did this hip hop like love and passion, like where did it really start, and how do you take it through your art?
Well, what I would say is that, the OGs taught me that rap is something that we do, but hip hop is how we live. And when you think of hip hop as a conscious discipline, not just something that we do with words when we get around, when we express ourselves, but something that we live our life through. For instance, Kung Fu. Like when you think of Kung Fu, you think of people fighting martial art. But you can make omelets with Kung Fu. You can make omelets with meaning. You can take out the trash with a deep meaning, and with an artistic style, and that's the same thing about hip hop is through the many elements of hip hop, graffiti writing, street fashion, street entrepreneurialism, street clothing, obviously MCing, breaking, DJing, these different elements that make up this culture. This is the same essence that made up reggae music. When you look at reggae music, right? Reggae music was on the island, right? And do you know why Bob Marley was called Bob Marley and the Wailers?
Thinking.
Do you know what it is? Do you know why? Okay, so he was called the Wailers because in 9 Mile, where Bob Marley came up, okay, there were so many babies that were poor and just could not get any nutrition, starving, that the weeping and the wailing of the children around their practice space overwhelmed anything they could hear musician-wise. So they were called the Wailers. And that kind of place in 9 Mile, as like Bunny and Bob would say, can make you go really good or really bad. And that same energy that I express with hip-hop, that same thing that I was explaining to you guys a little bit pre-cast, where it was like, Grandmaster Flash and DJ Kool Herc, these early pioneers of hip-hop, they weren't singing about the rap successes of hip-hop. They were singing about the conscious movement which gave hip hop a voice, an urban voice in the wilderness that said, hey, look, broken car, broken glass everywhere. People pissing on the stairs, they just don't care. Can't take the smell, can't take the noise. So this conscious voice in the wilderness, right? This is that same voice that really saved me. And when you look at hip hop as something that is not just a thing, but the love that has saved so many people to give them a voice to express themselves, all the way from, Logic, KRS-One, Ice Cube, how far can we go, Eazy-E? I mean, it just goes down the line of people who have brought themselves to a position over expressing themselves through hip-hop.
Definitely.
Now, was there ever a time that you thought that hip-hop maybe would be the career path that you go down? Or did you ever try to do it professionally?
So, Karma, fun fact, like being somebody who looks up to my OGs, KRS-One's name stands for Knowledge Reigns Supreme Over Nearly Everyone. That's it. Yeah. That's what KRS-One stands for. Karma always stood for conscious action, bringing righteously manifesting awe. Conscious action, righteously manifesting awe. So it's like, that was my little nod to KRS, my MC name. So when I got into glass blowing and everybody had a name, Banjo, Salt, and everybody knew who they were, I thought, man, who am I in a glass name? And then I realized, like, oh my gosh, on this thing that I already was in the cipher. And I would go down to Atlanta and I would go to many different ciphers that existed down in the graffiti yard, down at the Hillside International Truth Center, and I would go to these ciphers and I would represent myself as Kara. And so knowing that in hip-hop, you only get what you give. Mm-hmm. You're only going to get back out of any art form what you put into it. And so I realized when I got into glass, I was like, oh, this shit's tough. Yeah. Like, this shit is really hard. I'm only going to get back what I put into it.
100%.
So I better fucking give a lot.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those things where I realized quick on, okay, actually, I'm still Kara. And so I put that out there, and that's why.
And what was the age range there? Like, when were you first going to the ciphers down in Atlanta to when you started blowing glass?
So I found KRS and hip-hop early 17, and I was freestyling by late 17. But it was something that I had accrued a little bit in my homie's garage in high school because his big brother was a DJ. And his biggest thing to do when we would smoke blunts in the garage would be make us battle. And none of us wanted to battle. None of us wanted to freestyle. But that was his thing. Like, he had the ones to do.
That was his fun, man.
He would go down to Atlanta and he would DJ rave sets. And so he knew exactly what he was doing. And he was just bored knowing that we were going to bring Doja around the way. And so we would be smoking and he'd be like, okay, you and you battle. And so it just came naturally through that, just kind of goofing around in the garage and realizing that, like, oh man, this is something that I really enjoy. And it didn't hurt that my mother is a very eccentric, beautiful soul who really just appreciates every facet of life. My mother can say hello in 111 languages.
Wow.
Go all around the world and she can say hello to somebody in every language. And I'm like, why is that your thing? She's like, I want to make people feel comfortable. I want to make people feel at home, And so in that way, my mom, you know what she asked for? I remember in 1995, I can't remember how old she was. She was like 38 or something, but like I was in 5th grade. My mom wanted the Coolio album for her birthday. And my dad, I remember being at like Target and my dad's like, this? Are you sure? And I'm like, trust me. And like, she opened it up and she was like, Gangsta's Paradise, like, and that's the open household that I had, which allowed hip hop to be infused in at an early age. And I didn't really realize until I was older, and I was spitting freestyles on Instagram because they were taking down my posts because I was using copyrighted music. And so I realized, like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna make a song they never heard of, and I'm gonna make art about the art that I made. Because there's nothing cooler than art about art. Like when you see...
There's layers.
Yeah. What's cooler than an elbow piece? Like a rug? You got the rug about the piece too? Like, stop playing. Come on. Like, what? So to infuse art with art always brought me great joy.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the genesis of how hip-hop became a real part of my lifestyle and how I see the world.
I feel like this is a good little subsection to put a beat on for you and
Stop playing.
drop a little flow.
Play with me.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we could get some music queued up on this side
I love that.
and drop that beat, baby.
Okay. He said drop the beat. Okay. Weed Wookie. We got the vibe. You know what it is. We with the Karma Tribe. It's Vibe and Sesh. You know what's coming up next. I'm gonna leave your mind a mystery. We call that perplex. Okay, when I'm on the mic, I'm trying to spread that good shit. And when the beat drops, you know I'm on it too legit. You better get it started, man. You know what I say. Cause when the beat drops, you know that I don't play. So get it going. And it's the life that I live. I'm gonna share the wisdom with my wife and my kids. And I don't need a beat just to get real reckless. I drop mad hash and I'm telling you the dabs on and on till my light stops. Listen, it's the cream of the crop. What you want by the Sesh, yo, that's high stop. I'm here with Bad Head and he's keeping it chill. Every time I come around, man, I take the red pill. Keep it.
Let's go. I love it, bro. I love it.
Karma and the Wooers.
If we need to retake it too, you know.
No, that was fire, bro. That was fire.
It's going on the commercial.
Yeah, it's going on. So, getting it back here, you had the music, you had the vet thing, the drug test was coming, you were like, this ain't for me. So how did you find your way to class?
You know, man, like a lot of people like to talk about the teachers that other people would know. But the cat that really changed my path was a dude named Bob Byers, and he's in a town called Memon, North Carolina. And I called him because I was collecting and selling his glass. When I would go to widespread shows or when I had homies come by, I was definitely selling packs, operating multiple grow rooms before I ever lived a life as a glass blower. So I'd have these people come through and I got these open cases of glass and they're like, dang, how much? And so they'd pick up an ounce, grab a bite, you know? And so I called the homie Bob. I was selling his glass and it was a lot of proto, but it was just legit. At the
What
time.
year are we talking?
We're talking 2010.
Perfect.
Yep, late 2009, early 2010. And I told him, like, man, like, legit, I don't know what I'm going to do. I had this career. I had it all figured out. I was a veterinary technician for 7 years, helping animals, doing the thing that I loved, really succeeding. Started doing some management, you know, and started, you know, I was scrubbing into surgery,
Getting there, baby.
setting catheters, like,
Not even a damn thing.
yeah, absolutely. Like loving my career too. And, you know, I called Bob. I said, Bob, you ain't gonna believe this, man. They want me to take a drug test again. They want me to go to an inpatient rehab facility. And all I do is puff. Like I don't even drink much. I drink time to time, but like real talk, I puff, you know? And so he's like, you don't know this yet, but you're a glass blower. You need to come out here, check out how this works and see what's going on. Because, man, the amount of herb that you puff, the amount of hash you smoke, the amount that you just want to be home and that kind of lifestyle, I could see you starting your family like I've started mine. And so that was how that led to me starting my glass.
So did you do an apprenticeship with him, or did you go over? Did he show you the ropes, or how did you learn?
He showed me. He's like, get up here, and he showed me like. We did 5 days of intensive glass blowing, and he filled an order that he had going. And he said, at the end, I'm going to mail this order, and we're going to take the chillums that I've got, and we're going to go to Fish Lot, and we're going to sell all this stuff to all these hippies that have come to see fish. And so we went and did that, and I made very simple, clear stuff, and he made very more elaborate colored stuff. And I remember I sold these little oneie baths for $3, 1 for $3, 2 for $5. And I made a couple $100, and that was it. I was just like, you know what?
Yeah.
I was like, you know what, man?
I can do this.
This is possible.
Right.
I was like, you know what? I don't know how. I don't know where. I don't know why. But I'm going to get to more and more of these shows and figure it out. And so, yeah.
Were you a fan of the music too? Like,
absolutely.
So did you go following fish, or was that just a one and done? Or
So no. So basically, by the time that I'd come to the Fish Lot for glass blowing, it was something that I had done as a career choice. But prior to that, I've seen fish, I think 70 times. I've seen Sound Tribe Sector 9, me and my wife. I say me, but that's me and my wife.
Yeah.
We've seen Sound Tribe Sector 9 over 100 times. We've seen this little reggae band out of Athens, Georgia, Dub Conscious. We ended up seeing them over 100 times. Incarnations of the Grateful Dead, we've seen way over 100 times, you know. And so we stayed in we had a little VW bus, so we stayed in the back of our bus, and we really got a lot of joy and pleasure out of seeing live music. That was a big part of our youth.
So you started out, you're making these small little trinkets, more or less. And then how did this Karma Prep evolve? Like, where did that come from? And how did you decide Karma Prep? And how did it evolve into, kind of where it is?
Yeah, when did you find your shtick?
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's funny because that's definitely something that people encourage, right? Is like, find a lane, find something that, like, as teachers encourage, I should say, as you go around, you'll have teachers encourage this as a path. Like, find a preparatory material, find a shape, find something that really signifies you. And with me in this rainbow prep, it's really fun because I like to say that it speaks to who I am, a pretty inclusive, kind of hippie, far out, guy. But more importantly, this is something that I envisioned in 2014. I say 2014 because I know that that's when they released Purple Rain, and I know that's when they released Lemon Drop. Mm-hmm. And it was when I got those two sticks of color that I held them up to the light, and I was like, ooh, a stained glass backstack, And that was something that I'm sure a lot of people had thought of over the years, but it was something that within my Asheville community, people always knew me as like, oh yeah, you want to make that stained glass stack. But when I used those colors at the time, the rosé, Purple Rain, Lemon Drop, they were just a little too washed out. So when you vac stacked them and encased them in clear, it just created a little bit too much of a washed out color. Mm-hmm. And so it took until about 2018 when Molten Aura released the Gold Ruby and the Gold Amethyst, that deeply saturated pink and purple, that allowed me to complete what became formerly known as the Karma Stack. And when I first pulled that rainbow incarnation, I was like, oh, wow, that's the Karma Stack. Like, I knew it right away. Like, I was like, oh, I'm Karma, this the Karma Stack. And I told my dad, who was like chilling in my studio smoking with me, I was like, dude, I'm going to make this, because in 2018, to get those colors was far out. Like, to even have Gold Ruby, Gold Amethyst, you had to be a top dog. And
how'd you get them?
I just so happened to be their neighbors. I just happened to they're making that in Asheville, North Carolina. Yeah. And so it just so happened that I was able to filter in and grab those colors through the community of gathering and shows and different things and different events within the space. And so
it's awesome.
Yeah. So it worked out nicely. And then when I first pulled that, I told my father, I said, I'm going to do this all summer. I said, this is going to be...
It just felt good immediately.
It felt good immediately. Felt like exactly what I saw in my mind's eye since 2014. It was like an itch that I had that I was like, oh, I can finally scratch this and do all the things I want to do. And then and expected it to be something that I was super emphatic about and super enthused about for that entire summer.
So you had the Karma Stack, and then what? Obviously, you have a prep. It's easy to collab, but it's not easy to find the people to collab with.
That's right.
So what happened?
Well, that's where I relied on the community at large, where, a great deal of all of these projects, even though there's been so very many, have been a collaboration with not only myself and the artist, but as well the industry at large. And so when I pulled that prep and thought, wow, this is a wonderful thing, it took the reflection of the collector base and the industry at large to say, you know what, we believe in this. Yeah. And it wasn't something that I necessarily expected in such a large way. It was something that I was excited about personally. But when people started saying, hey, will you collab with this guy? And will you collab with this guy? It was always something that I was trepidatious that, I was like, ask them, because I would be interested.
Who was your first collab?
The first collab with the Karma Stack, it's hard to say. I was thinking about this actually not too long ago, and it's hard to say like who the very first collaboration is, and it's been hard to track that down in photo category, but I know that some of the first people that I collaborated with on a local scale were Katie Did It Glass, a kaleidoscope maker that I work with still to this day. I worked early on with a homie named Grizz Glass that is still blowing some glass. Not as blowing as much glass, but still killing it when he does get on the torch. And also, like on a national scale, Nathan Belmont was a huge early person that said, hey, yeah, I want to get in and work with you. And me and Kong worked.
He was an actual guy?
No, Kong was a national guy. And he was one that was coming into town to teach classes. And he, agreed, yeah, I'll collab with Karma, So Calm, Nathan Belmont, Krunkelstein, like the best.
I mean, his chipstick and your bright colors just vibe.
I mean, to be fair, like, part of the reason is, too, because, like, this prep, it really looks good, and it applies well on, like, almost everyone's form, whether it's, like, sculpted or functional, and, like, I think that opens up a lot of doors, and other collectors see that, and they're like, man, I would love to see, that colorway applied to this design. So that's pretty cool. But, like, of all of those collaborative experiences, do any of them in particular, like, stand out to you or reside in your memory, for better or for worse?
Totally, yeah.
Let's hear a good and bad collab story.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think that the number, like, it's hard to, choosing your favorite collaboration can seem to me like choosing your favorite color of the rainbow. So, oh, man, I love red, but I really love red on the weekends, like when I'm trying to flex, like, so, in that way it's tough. But to think about it, I would have to say that I think every glass blower has people that they look up to and that they feel like have realized the glass vision ahead of themselves. Mm-hmm. Somebody that they can look to, almost like when Michael Jordan started slam dunking, everybody realized, man, that's possible, and that's different for everybody.
Yeah.
But one of those people that I've worked with a number of times now, but that remains that person on that list is Banjo. I've looked up to Banjo's glass just like all the rest of us for all the years. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those things that I feel like it takes a community to envision a collaboration of that scale and on some of the scales that we've created.
Definitely.
We've made pieces that have taken us 3 weeks and 2 weeks and, significant offerings to the borosilicate community at large. And it just remains to be deeply meaningful to me. And, one story I can tell real quick about a Banjo collab is the very first time we got together is 2020. We're getting ready for my show at Lifted Veil Gallery down in Los Angeles. And this is when Banjo's still living up in Oregon. And wildfires are all on the horizon, It's not looking good for 2020 at that point. Yeah. And we are in the hotel. We're driving over to Banjo's house. It's like 9 a.m. on a Monday. That was what we had all scheduled. Like, we had a little camp out the weekend before. Our girls, his twins and my daughter, have a very close birthday. So they're within days of each other. So they had a birthday party. And since we had been on the road traveling, which is a main tenet of what I do, is travel to send these rainbows flying high wherever I go. I don't ever want to just send them through the mail if I can help it. I want to travel and I want to meet these people head on and I want to create the best things we can. And so in that way, he had recognized that. Banjo had said, man, you've been on the road a while. Like, it looks like, my girl's having a birthday party. Your girl want to come and party. We can just do family stuff. And so we had a great family day and said, hey, tomorrow, 9 o'clock, let's hit it. We're heading over there at 9 o'clock in the morning. There's ash falling from the sky. No. And I'm like, what the heck? I'm like, and then an emergency alert comes on my phone that there's fires right in the area. And so I call Banjo, I call Matt, and I'm like, yo, like, what do we do? He's like, we run for our lives, man. Like, do you have anywhere to go? And I was like, man, I could like dart back up to Seattle. And he's like, I'm going out to the coast. And so we both split. I was pulling up his driveway as I made the call. We get out, I give him a big hug. I'm like, well,
off we go.
And so I go back up to Seattle for 6 days. And he sent me a text later that day. He said, if the smoke clears and it's meant to be, I'll give you a shout. And I was like, all right, but fully counted it out and fully was just like, oh man, that's That wasn't meant to be, you know. And so I'm up in Seattle and I'm working, and I ended up getting in with the homie Walnut Glass.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, really.
I remember that one kicked off.
Guy. And so I got in with Walnut Glass, who opened his doors to me and was like, yo, come create in here. And like, if we have time, we get one. And that was, ended up being meaningful to me and my family, who were just like basically running from wildfire.
Yeah, it gave you refuge for sure. That's awesome.
And so Banjo called me about 5 days later, and he was like, hey, smoke is clear. And so I drove back on down to Oregon, and about 6.5 hours down to Oregon, and we got to work.
With your family.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's awesome.
I've always got them in tow. They're always part of the story.
Yeah, I think that's so important to kind of touch on, is that a lot of people don't realize that all these collaborations, when you're traveling all around the country, you're bringing your own little karma tribe with you. You know,
right.
So
Yeah,
that's right.
I think it's super important and special to touch on that a little bit. You know, how a lot of people don't realize what really goes into the collabs. It's not just you going, making prep and giving it to the guy, but you're actually there working with them. You have expenses that people don't even think about. You know, the hotels, the restaurants that add up, the extra days of stay, the overage charges, like,
that's right.
It's crazy.
Yeah, man, I have a saying that we make them together and we break them together. So like, if something goes wrong, I want to be there, and if something goes right, I also want to be there.
Yeah.
You know, and I want to be
better for worse. Yeah.
I want to be a part of that man, you know. And I want to be able to say that I got to know a new friend, and that I got to build with somebody who, not only in this glass way, but in this way where we have a meaningful relationship, where we know in a business setting and in a friendship setting, we can count on each other, you know. And that's super important, because otherwise you just have this guy on the other end of the screen in this 2D setting who just sends me this rainbow prep, and what is this? And I want to let people know where I come from and why I come there, you know. And exactly, I openly bleed in a lot of ways to get where I'm going, but I don't look at that as a negative. I look at that as a positive, because I think that the people in the glass game that I respect the most bled openly to get where they want to go, and they have a story that is of struggle and is of sacrifice, and I want to make it abundantly clear that I'm part of that lineage, and I want to be on that totem pole. And so when I get to town and I'm paying for a mortgage back home, and I'm paying for an Airbnb, and my wife, you know, we're really good about cooking. My wife will take over an Airbnb and be cooking 3 meals. She homeschools my children. And, you know, I think that
Shout out Mary.
Yeah, I think that glass blowers that don't acknowledge that they have a stronger force behind them, shout out Mary, as you said.
Yeah.
They're not being honest with themselves. And I think that glass blowers that don't have a Mary and that don't have a rock solid foundation behind them, I can see that and I can feel that. And so I feel very blessed to have a very well thought out plan underneath what I'm doing. And I never wanted to be a part of the greater scene at large until I was able to bring my children with me wherever I went. And so even those times where I'm breaking even and I'm not, and I'm like, well, I'm paying a mortgage here, I'm doing this. It's a blessing to be able to work with Salt. It's a blessing to be able to work with JMass. It's a blessing, Haps. I mean, like, it's, you could just go on, and it's just such a humbling thing to me that we could go from all of the OGs to all of the new guys, and we could just say that there's a way bigger, way smaller list of people that I haven't gotten to work with and share space with in this game than, you know, there is that I haven't. So
yeah, it's awesome, man. I mean, I've seen you've gotten so many pipes, even Bob Snodgrass collabs on the most recent one.
Yeah,
shout out to Bob. That was awesome, man. I saw you got 2 pipes in with him for that.
Astronauts and applesauce.
Yeah, astronauts and applesauce.
And that's a perfect example of someone who understands, like, living in that family structure and how you can, like, you know, support each other and make, you know, the whole tribe stronger. Like, who better than the Bob tribe? And honestly, like, you living in, you know, the likeness of your own Bob master.
Yeah.
Right? And do you still stay in contact with him?
Yeah, you know what? I do. I just was able to reconnect with him on Grateful Dead lot, and he was still out there doing his thing. We don't stay near as connected as we should, but his wife and my wife are connected, and so they give updates. But yeah, I was like, oh, I gotta track him down for sure on Grateful Dead lot. And he was out there doing his thing when the Dead said goodbye.
That's
so. And so, yeah, I think that like whether it's my personal Bob Maestro or the greater Bob Maestro, I think we all look to a Bob, and
everybody needs a Bob.
Everyone needs a Bob. Yeah, give thanks, man. It's a blessing to be able to have people like that ahead on the path that model what we want to be. And when I look at Bob, how he models inclusivity over exclusivity, it's a blessing. It's a blessing to see somebody that's infusing thoughts of the Grateful Dead into the world in which we live, because they're saying goodbye, but alas, we, have these different experiences and these personality traits and things that we want to imbue from the Dead into this pipe culture, and Bob's just like that guy. It is him.
Do you think your kids are gonna step into the glass blowing stuff? Do they understand what you're doing? Obviously, they're going on the road show with you. Do they get it?
Yeah. If there's one that gets it, it's my middle child. It's my daughter, and she's like very. It's very important to her to get into the studio on a weekly basis. So she's blowing glass all the time, and she really wants to be a part of it. But one of the greatest gifts that my father gifted me, I come from a long line of successful entrepreneurs, and my grandfather, he was just celebrated. He was just inducted into the U.S. Bicycle Hall of Fame. He owned and operated the oldest bike shop in the country.
Yeah, I think that's the coolest story.
It makes us so proud. Kopp Cycle, KOPPS, after old man E.C. Kopp, and that started in 1891. And then he took the shop over in the early 40s, and my family owns and operates it to this day. And
wow,
it's one of those things. My Uncle Charlie runs that shop, and it makes us, so proud. But it's also when he was going to give that shop, or to try to get his kids to be a part of the family business, he never forced anything upon them.
Yeah.
And so my father had a automotive business in Atlanta, Georgia for 30 years. And that was a very successful business. And I always said, am I going to have to take the business over? How does this work? Kev, the greatest gift my father ever gave me was he allowed me to be the person I wanted to be. And he didn't force me to be, not because he didn't want to see me be into the bicycle, but because the greatest gift you can give somebody is to let them be themselves.
Definitely.
And so that in that way, like, I hope my kids pick up a torch, but if they don't, like, what I really want them to be is I want them to be themselves.
Yeah.
So on the collaboration train, obviously I know you've collabed with a lot of people. What are some of the horror stories? Any of those, or any?
Surprisingly, I will say, like, the horror stories aren't as horrible as you think, but can mostly be around scheduling and about the way that things go down, or the situation that you find yourself in because of the city you're in. Like, I'll tell you a collaboration horror story, and it has nothing to do with the other artists, but it is a horror story. I was up at the Orb studio in Seattle, and this is where, like, Storm and Norman, Hoverglass, Walnut, Haps, a lot of those guys, and Haps I think moved, but this is where a lot of those guys were bedded down. And I'm at the Orb studio, and I'm working late into the night, and a lot of the things that I do require meeting a deadline. If I'm gonna say I'm gonna do a show, or if I say I'm gonna be somewhere, I gotta be there. And so sometimes, instead of being the type of person that says, oh, I didn't make it, or oh, I can't be there, I'll just work late. I'll just make up with hard work. And so and I think a lot of us glass blowers are like that. I think we're gonna land the piece. It's what we are trained to do, is to make sure that we crush it, we don't rush it. And so and it's like 3 a.m. at the Orb studio in Seattle. And anyone's been to Seattle, it's a lot like DC, or it's a lot like Philly, where it's a city. There's a lot going on, a lot of things happening. And so I go to the door to leave, and I open the door, and oh my gosh! And it's a houseless gentleman's crouched down on a newspaper he set out, and he's shitting right there
In front of
On the doorstep.
on the doorstep. And I go, dude, God, I'm like, dude, no. And I like slam the door and I'm like talking through him through the door. I'm like, dude, you gotta go. You can't be here. And he's like, I'll get out of here when I'm done. And I'm like, oh man, like, geez Louise. And so I like leave him. I'm like, I'm coming back in 5 minutes. You gotta get out of here, man. I don't know how to deal with this.
Yeah, what the fuck is going on?
The heck? So I go and get, and we'll just leave all the names out of it. I go to get another glass blower, and he's like, Seattle, he's been to the city.
Yeah.
He's like, are we going to have to get this guy out of here? I'm like, no, I think he's going to leave, you know? So we wait, we smoke some hash, we come back out there, he's wrapping it up, he's finishing up, it looks like. We go to open the door, I'm like, dude, you need to get the hell out of here, man. Come on, get in here. He's like, I told you I was leaving. And he throws the shit down the stairs in the newspaper, the whole thing, you know, and he scurries out to the night. And I'm like, oh my gosh, dude. I'm like, I run down the stairs. I'm like, get out of here, dude. You are disgusting. This is terrible. You know, I'm like from Asheville, North Carolina, and there was this city light, you know.
Literally.
And he's happy like a cat. I'm like, this guy, like. And so I go running back, and by the time I go running back, this glass blower's got thick rubber gloves on and a cardboard box, and he's cleaning up the homeless shit. And I go, no, dude, don't do this. And he flings it over the train tracks, and he goes, dude, 4th time that's happened this year, dude. I'm like, fucking, well, I was like, get me out of Seattle, man.
I'm saying it. I'm saying it.
I got the vibe of Seattle. Like, so, yeah, man, like, that's one that just comes off the top of my head. I've worked next to glass blowing centers or, you know, little studios next to crematories, you know? And so it's like, they're like, oh, we got shut down. And I'm like, what's going on? They're like, the crematory's firing up. Like, no. And I'm like, oh my God, like, okay, and it's time to go.
Yeah, I'm leaving now.
And so that's kind of the thing is everybody's got a different situation. Everybody's doing different things and in different parts of different cities. So yeah, there's been a fair amount of glass blowing, you know, stories that I wish would have gone different ways, you know, but yeah. We make the best, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
Yep.
As far as collabs, who is someone that you haven't gotten down with that you're excited to? May either be on the books or maybe not be on the books yet.
Yeah, you got a wish list?
Yeah, I would say that some of the cats, man, that's tough to say. There's so many that are up on that list that I still want to work with. But some cats that are legendary that I would still love to work with are, I mean, probably the same people that a lot of cats would say, WJC, Jenkins, Contrabasso, you know, those are all, you know, cats that would be awesome to work with.
I can imagine Jenkins just like manipulating your piece in rainbows and colors with his
rainbows to sculpted rainbows.
Yeah, that would just fuck people's head. And
for sure.
WJC's flips with the rainbows too. It's just gonna, it's gonna vibe, bro. Like that's it.
Yeah. And then there's like, like coming up the pike, like, I would say that like Not a Pipe Maker working with Cole was a real dream.
Yeah, that one came out.
Just got to work with Soul and just an incredible human with an incredible vision and just so clean.
They get it.
So clean and so hospitable. And made me feel really welcome in Philly, so y'all should be able to look out for that one. That's a clean machine that's bobbing around for sure. But yeah, you know, definitely the list of people that I'm proud to work with is so long, man. And you know, I would say that it's a pleasure to have worked with so many incredible artists, you know, and been in a position to say yes to so many projects, you know.
Yeah.
Where. You know, I was the kind of guy for years that might have been more leaning towards no. Not because I didn't want to work with others, but because I would think maybe, collaboration, like, I got my own thing going, you know. And I made a nectar collector that for years that I called the Trichoscope that from about 2013 to about 2017, really strong. I made this nectar collector that had a removable quartz tip, a little 7mm removable quartz tip, and it was like tiny. So I was doing more building than I was prepping.
Sure.
And so it was more important to me to continue building this build. And, that's the thing I look forward to doing now. I've been walking this rainbow path for a number of years, and I look forward to getting back to doing a little bit of building. And
I was thinking, like, where are you headed now with your functionals? Because now you got the prep down.
Yeah.
Now it's time to really make a functional, your own.
Yeah.
Where are you heading? Obviously, you're doing these from 2013, 2017.
Yeah.
Took a little pause. Now, when did you dive back into your own functional, and where do you see it going?
Yeah, I think now's the time. I think a lot of people here in 2013, they're finding themselves saying that. It's like, now's the time. Now's the time I have time to do different things that I haven't normally had the time to do, because there's been a more rigid schedule of a show or a drop every
those deadlines
month. And so, doing fun new things like even Parlay, where we got to all roll in on Philly and do our thing and express ourselves. So, yeah, I think now's the time, man. I really look forward to getting into building and coming up with some fun little hash smoking designs that really feel meaningful to me and feel like they feel good for, glob it on the daily.
Do you have any ideas? Are you going to go banger, hanger, recycler? Like, where are you?
Bring it back to nectar collectors.
Yeah, it's a number of things. There's a small contingency of heads that still believe in the nectar collector, but I think that what's going to be most meaningful to me is to explore function. In all facets.
Yeah.
I've if you scroll far back enough on my page and you get before the rainbow stuff, you'll be able to see where I've built a number of different recyclers and different things. But at the end of the day, I also haven't put forth the time into building those in these past years as I have to saying yes to homies like Voorhees. Because I've always said that oh man, I need to focus in on those designs a little bit more when cats like that quit tapping my little and that's super meaningful for me to open up a dialogue and a relationship, not only on an art scale with those people, but also just on a personal scale to where we can, do things in the future. And so it's been super hard to go, oh, you know what? I'm going to make another hash smoking design that is derivative of what a lot of other people do. Because that's one thing I see people do is they put out a hash pipe. They say this is their main focus is to express that. And then it has so many derivatives.
Similarities.
And that was always one of my things is that I wanted to definitely say yes to the industry at large before I said yes to re-dialoguing in on my own designs. Because people would hit me up and say oh, hey, would you make this? And then they would just send me a picture of perp skirts. And I'd be like, oh, well, I already have a homie that does that. Why don't we just make one?
Yeah.
And it never felt good for me to try to change it 10% and to express that and to pretend like that wasn't a 10% less knockoff of my friend's stuff. And so in that way, these last 4 years have been a great deal of me being able to work with people that I feel are legendary. And so now that we've found things in this industry where there's time to breathe and there's time to focus.
Yeah.
Do that.
I mean, I just think it's cool. You're able to just kind of expand. I know when I went to Parlay a couple weeks back with my dad, he went to your show in particular, and just all the rainbow colors was just so exciting. It was interesting for him. And I remember him going and picking up the salt banjo and your collab. It was a 3-way, and he's like, this is insane. And he has no concept of price or anything. He was just going in and appreciating the art for what it was, and those were the pipes that spoke out to him. And it was just cool for me to see this is what someone who's not coming it in with a brand name, hype, price, anything, what vibes and resonates with the order. Yeah. So I think it's cool that you're able, Karma, Salt, and Banjo, that's legendary. That's a legendary 3-way. And I know you have a couple with Perp Skirt now. We're super stoked to try out that pipe again. So,
and we got to rage.
Yeah, so I know that you have been really pushing the boundaries in the club. So
certainly been trying my best.
Do you think that there's anyone that you haven't gotten down with yet that you think, like, maybe the pipe, I guess, what's the next one that's destined? Do you have one planned, another collab, or what?
Oh, yeah.
What's coming?
There's always something in the works, man. There's always something that's coming down the pike. And, you know, right now what I'm working on is I am going to settle into a solo phase. And so I am going to settle into a lot of design. Like, I've put my Chinese astrological zodiac is black bear. And so the black bear is a very interesting creature. And as I've found that was my zodiac, I relate to it a lot. Yeah. And they tuck away for winter. And I'm trying to make it the best thing that I can do to tuck away for winter. And I'm trying to reemerge at Las Vegas with some fun, new, different things to share.
That's exciting.
Yeah. And so it's definitely, there are no collabs on the horizon for the first time. Well, and I've made that intentionally so. It took a lot of effort. There's about 13 things I could be doing. But I'm definitely looking forward to having a slow winter. And I'm probably going to bounce out, like, at some point to Colorado and do a little, like, maybe like, and this is all very preliminary, but me and Matt Robertson have been talking about doing some skiing and, like, just inviting people out to ski and hang out. Not no real show.
Show me on our list.
I got the epic pass for it.
Yeah, let's go.
Come on. Out there. Speaking of Roberts, you brought
segue to the.
You brought one of the.
Yeah, I've been peeking down at the all night.
So walk us through this one. When did you make it?
Yes.
What did you guys do together?
So yeah, this piece was made with Robertson while I was out his way, just past this, just like before the summer, in May of 2023 here. And we did some skiing and we did some hanging and made this piece. And this is what we call the undercover zebra, because normally my prep has white stringer lines.
Yeah.
And what we did was we removed it in this way, and you can see that present really on the feet. And so we removed those white stringers and we replaced it with the white striping of the traditional zebra.
It's very cool.
And so it's got a fun optic to it where there's a spiral and there's a wigwag underneath present. And so this is a fun little piece that me and Matt made. And this is the kind of thing you can expect from us. You know, Matt's got that zoo life energy, and then I come along with the rainbow vibes. So maybe we'll go ahead and get together this winter.
And how long does something like that take you guys to get together, from both planning and through execution?
You know, that one right there, if you count planning.
Let's count planning.
I would say if you count planning, because there's a lot of logistics about two people coming together.
Right.
Know? Like, with Matt, he's got 2 beautiful kids and a beautiful wife, and that has to be factored in. I'm going to come stay in Colorado for 6 days or 8 days. That's something that has to be, gone over with our families. I'm going to travel,
Will your family go with you typically on that one?
Yeah.
So when you go to something like Colorado, will you stay ever with the artist? Is there any artists that you stay with their family, or are you typically Airbnb?
Everything is different with different occasions, but yeah, I would say there's no typical.
Yep.
But like, if you deal with somebody like Matt Robertson, he's got an extra space, that he's got a wonderful condo built out at his studio. So he always offers that up to me to stay.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yes. So he's amazing. Anyway, he's an amazing host, and his wife is like an amazing cook, and so he makes it feel real nice in that way, where he's able to welcome me in. I don't have to pay for a hotel or Airbnb.
Yeah,
and we're able to get some fun time in and make a piece. And usually a piece goes to his collectors, a piece goes to my collectors, and
definitely,
yeah, we make a good run at it. But I know we want to get together this winter, but other than that, I've got plans to chill.
There's this one too.
Since we're bringing out heaters,
more traditional prep on that one.
Yeah, this collab here. This is with ESP. This is with Jesse, and basically, Jesse is one of those guys who is been in the game for a long time,
very long time,
and it shows. He's got the pattern work. He can manipulate those patterns in so many ways, and does it so cleanly. And this is a snorkel bub style, Where back in the day, we would have a carb here and we would pack it and put the flower here and smoke it just like a bum. But he's upgraded it with a 10 millimeter doer, so you can smoke dabs or you can have a little slide in there.
Yeah, super nice.
And so makes it really functional, because if you've ever hit flower out of one of these, it's super smooth.
Very nice.
And same goes for dabs.
That was one of my favorite designs back in like college, I think.
Yeah.
When did you guys make this one?
This one was made just about a month ago up in Philadelphia. And yeah, Jesse is known for his what is called the ducktail or the duck butt. And when he makes those shapes, it's a pull out, so to get that broadening and to get that point, but sucking in at the same time, getting that area in between. And so
Such a finesse.
Super technical.
super technical, and
And for the lines on your prep to come out that clean.
Super clean.
He nailed it.
it's
Cool.
super honor to get in with him every time. Again, another OG that's been doing it right for a long time.
Definitely.
So you've had a couple of shows more recently with the Parlay show, and then you had your Stoke show.
Yep.
What were some of your favorite pieces from both?
You know, man, it's definitely, again, it's hard to choose and pick, but I would say that a couple highlights are going to have to be the Contained Thunderstorm, the Perp Skirt.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah.
one thing that has been a blessing getting to know these artists as that, because you know somebody in a small way, but it's sometimes hard to get to know someone in a deeper, meaningful way. And so Patrick is one of those people who I was loosely familiar with your story and who he was and what he represented.
Super nice guy.
But getting to know Patrick has been a truly magical experience, and he's become a dear friend of mine. So anytime we get together and we're able to work together, it's working with your homies. So it's like it's you guys running this podcast, right? You're part of it.
Just doing the damn thing.
But it's Perf Skirt we're talking about. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
there's a lot of incredible, like, and this is a personal opinion, but I'm just going to put it out there. It's like, there's a lot of incredible people who make recyclers. And then there's Perf Skirt.
Yeah.
You know, like,
He's got the function.
the condialed rainstorm that is that piece that we just made.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel so honored, and to know the lineage of the fact that there's only been 5, including the one that we just made. There's only 5 ladders been made in the last 5 years. You know, and when you look at that list of people who he's made them with, you know, Sleek, Mike Dunn, I feel very honored to be in that list.
Definitely.
Right.
And he's, you know, Patrick said that he feels like it's one of the better functioning pieces.
I was just going to say the same thing, so I'm happy you said that. Yeah. Of the ladders that I've hit as well, especially. But they're all very
They are. And so, yeah, it's definitely probably one of the more favorite ones from the show. And then I would say, like, another favorite is lesser known artist, but really talented and on his path. And it's always good to see an artist who can make banger after banger. That's always something that we want to see, you know. But an artist who's on the come up, that's a story we can all get behind.
Absolutely.
And to see somebody really get it, you know, and to really want it and then get it in a non-conventional means, that would be my homie Justin Freeman. And he's in Asheville, and we've done a couple of larger scale projects together now. But I would say that Justin is somebody who knows what he wants, and he's ready to get it.
Yeah.
And it's an honor to be a part of him being ready to get it. And, you know, we made this bison. We made this rainbow bison, this rainbow buffalo.
Yeah, beautiful.
And, you know, the fun part about buffaloes is that when there's a rainstorm, we made this piece because when there's a rainstorm, there's like a native proverb that says the cows lay down or the cows run away so that they don't get wet or so that they can.
Yeah.
But the buffalo runs in. And so throughout this little rainstorm that we're experiencing as a community that's given us this great pause, we want to run in. We don't want to pursue what we're after by doing less or doing just smalls and just little things. We want to remember that we're out here by flexing tough and being our best self and express ourselves.
That's poetic, man.
So, Justin Freeman, There was a couple of trials and tribulations. We had to make that thing in the same town, but satellite. I had Sibeli over while he started the project.
Yeah.
Some things just weren't going right. I just dropped everything, and I was like, okay, I need to run over there. And I was able to run over there, work over there for about 4 or 5 hours. I pulled the eyes off of the piece. I re-terminated. We got it sculpturally back to the point where he wanted it so we could reapply eyes. And I just was like spitting freestyles or vibing up. And he was like, bro, the energy's changed. We're doing this. We're marching in. So like,
That's the
good.
That's like the mystical side of glass too, dude. It's like almost like it imprints that energy sometimes. Like if you're stressed or you're clenching it, it's like gonna break, man.
So that's
For
pretty
sure.
cool. I know that you can feel like the real energy when you're there in person. Like that's what you were saying before, how you can be hands-on. And I think that's a side of the things that people aren't seeing too, is that you have the technical skills, you have the know-how, you can step in and help save pieces.
Yes.
And I'm sure that you have on plenty of these. And that's the thing too, is that sometimes people don't realize that while a piece is being made, shit happens.
Yes.
And a lot of shit happens. And you got to get back in there and be a doctor and really fix that shit.
Yes.
I've seen some heartbreaks, man.
Oh man, it goes sad, but like 2 quick stories are, one is like I was working with Saul for the first time and a piece popped and he was working on it and I said, now look, I'm sure you know.
Like a tooth or an eyeball.
No, like the piece.
The whole thing.
Did like a spider crack went there. And I said, like, I'm sure you've seen all, I know you know all, you're the OG, you know.
Yeah, it's all signal.
But I was like, man, I know this trick from this lamp worker that I met at Framo Studios in Atlanta, Georgia, back in 2011, right when I was first starting. It's called the Dragon's Breath, And so I turned this flame up, and I was like, just give me the piece, And he was like, okay. And he gave me the piece, and I started healing in the piece and showing him exactly what. And I was like, now I'm not trying to, because I didn't want more than anything to like try to think I was like schooling Saul.
Yeah.
A lot of people, like a lot of young bucks would get off on that. But like I'm way too respectful.
Yeah.
I'm from hip hop. You know what I mean? I don't want to get barred.
Yeah, some of that, the understanding comes with age, sometimes with experience. Like,
I get that.
I've always respected that. And so he was like, oh no, like, damn, like lit, like, and then like 4 years later, we're working together and he's like using that flame. And I'm like, oh, the old Dragon's Breath. And he's like, I listen when you talk, and like, that's really powerful for me to see that, like, iron does sharpen iron in the studio,
Right.
And similarly, I was down in Austin, Texas, seeing Home Assault, and I'm working with Sibeli, who got permission to use Micah Evans' studio.
Nice.
A week's time. And we got commissioned to make pieces that aren't normal in any of our context. She knows she makes sculpture. I know that I make rainbow and patterns, and I know that I can build, but this guy asked us to make a dragon and a tiger crossing tails so that they interlinked, but that they were both dry pipes, separate dry pipes. One for his sister, one for him, representing the sacred masculine and feminine. And so we get just right into this project. We're working at Micah's studio. We're having a great time. We're vibing. We're doing the thing. We're coming up with concepts. We're drawing them down. We're making them come to life. And there was a certain point, because Sibeli is the boss. She is
her sculptural ability is off the charts.
And she got into a point where between what she had going, the way she had it putty, and the wig wagging of my tail, she didn't want to fuck it up, and I could tell, I could just see it. I was like, oh no, I could feel where she's uncomfortable.
Feel her energy.
And we radiate off each other in that studio, because if you have gravity and you have breath and you have fire and you have all this alchemy, tell me it's not magic. Tell me it can't.
Yeah.
So I was like, I think I can do what you're trying to achieve. And I was like, can I grab it? She's like, yes. I grab it. I'm like, okay. I was like, don't ever forget. And I'm like talking while I'm like heating this tail up really broadly in this like fiery flame. I'm like, don't ever forget. Like, the glass listens to us. We gotta tell it what to do, right?
That's it.
What do we want it to do? And she's like, oh, yeah. But it's already... And I go, oh, no, I'm unkinking this tail. This tail's coming unkinked, And so I, like, unkink this tail. I'm like, what? And it looks a little wobbly, but I know I can bring it back with a couple of puffs of breath.
Yeah.
I know that we can get it. I'm like, give me this thing. And she had this like mold to wrap it around. And I'm like, let's go. And I heat it up. I wrap it around. I lock it in. I puff. And I'm like, woo! I'm like, heat it up again, puff, heat it up again, puff, get it right to where it's supposed to be. And Micah comes out of the woodworks and he's like, that's how you fucking collaborate. That's too more. That's how we get it. He goes, Karma, this is the side of you that people don't get to see.
Right.
Yeah. He goes, this is the side. He goes, and let me just say it right here and now. He goes, we haven't collaborated yet, but that will happen. And that will happen often. He's like, I want to work with people like you that are up in the studio and who get wet and are in skin.
He's like, I want a water buffalo, baby.
I go right in.
I need the bear.
Like, no, it's where I'm like hot and sweaty. I'm like, fuck, that's Micah.
Like my brother. Oh, yeah, Micah. It's on it.
So yeah,
God bless him, man. He's fucking hard.
there's a couple of, total hard men.
I go, as he's shaped.
God,
As shaped.
I mean, I'm here in D.C.
Yeah.
Visiting you guys. I got my family. We went to the Smithsonian. We went to the Natural History Museum. Micah represents that. He's the only glass blower who's made a pipe that's made it in the Smithsonian.
Yeah.
So if that guy tells you he wants to work with you, then you're on the right path.
Where you're supposed to be.
Yeah, so I've never really, as much as my representation of what I do has been 2D, and people don't really like to scroll back and see my past and what I built and what I represent in the past. It's, when people like that tell you that you're on the way, or you don't really read the comments.
Yeah. Stop the art.
They worry about what those say,
Yeah. So we're wrapping up kind of towards the end of our podcast here. Is there any final words, anything that you want to leave us with? Any good vibes, good energies, or anything to just tell the world, tell the community?
Yeah. Well, man, I'm a fan of living with death in your front pocket. And I know that seems a little callous, It's like, man, when you hear good vibes, you don't want to hear about death. You don't want to hear about the end,
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people, this wisdom was brought to me through Chief Tecumseh, who said this, the Shawnee Nation. And he said and this is an encapsulation of his long poem, and you can read, if you Google Chief Tecumseh poem, you'll see the whole thing. But a lot of people live their lives in a way where when they go over the Great Divide, whenever it comes, they want to do it again. They want to redo it, and they want to re-say things to different people, and they want to live in a way where they really wish they might have tried this or they might have done that.
Yeah.
And one thing that I take with me every day by living with death in my front pocket is I have my song written. My death song is written so that when I go over the Great Divide, I'm not going to look for another chance. This is my chance.
Yeah.
What I'm doing here on this planet is my God. This is my dance. This is my ability to change the world in which I live. And I don't take that for granted. And I feel really grateful, and I feel really humbly blessed. I know that's a cliche word, but I feel chosen, I'm blessed to be able to share any kind of love imbued into glass art. If ever anyone's taken my vibe saver and said, yo, Karma, shot me a message yo, Karma, this was super meaningful to me. I had a bad day today and I thought about the vibes there. I think about the good vibes. I think about the things that you say. That's a super privileged position. And so in that way, I encourage everybody to live today's your last day, and to dance like nobody's watching, and to smoke like it's your last fucking gram. So I appreciate you boys having me on this podcast. Thank you. I appreciate you letting me shine through that, man. And for whatever that is, and to wherever this goes in the interwebs, I will share these words with you. Peace.
Thank you.